Hi there, my name is Porsha Lauri. Welcome to or welcome back to my YouTube channel, where today I'm doing one of my favorite things ever. I'm talking to you about me. I'm talking to you about my 5 favorite horror movies. I don't want to spend too much time talking it up. We're just gonna get right into it. But if you like videos like this, movies, TV, whatever, please be sure to drop a like on this video, then run over to that subscribe button and hit that bell next to it so you'll be notified every time I upload. And let's go ahead and just get right into it. These are my 5 favorite horror movies in no particular order, and the reasons why I like them, and maybe why you'll like them too. So the first movie I'm going to talk about is The Faculty. I have mentioned it in this is the 3rd consecutive video where I've mentioned this movie, so I want you to understand I really like this movie. The Faculty came out in 1998. It starred Elijah Wood, Jordana Brewster, and Josh Hartnett. It was about an alien virus that takes over a small town high school, and it's up to these group of kids to kind of put it at a stop before it takes over the entire world. Very sci-fi, very 90s, very. Faculty was actually just a remake of Invasion of Body Snatchers, but in the 90s for teenagers. What I think is really great about this movie is that it's pretty relatable. If you were an angsty teen in the 90s, this was your archetype. Now, while most of the movies I'm going to talk about were from a different time, so I feel like it has to be said, some of this stuff didn't age well, okay? Some of these jokes in any of the movies I'm going to talk about did not age well, but that doesn't take away from what the centralized idea of the movie was. Elijah Wood, Josh Hartnett, and Jon Stewart actually really stand out to me as some of the best acting performances. My favorite scene in the movie is probably where they're figuring out this virus and how it spreads and how it mutates from person to, well, they don't know from person to person yet. They watch it evolve from this like tiny little nothing to this creature with tentacles, and it's very scary. And they figure this out in the science class with Jon Stewart. As for things that are not so great about it, I mean, you have to keep in mind this is late 90s CGI, so like The Matrix was really big, and some of the CGI just doesn't hold up to today's standards. But if you can kind of look past that or watch this on an old TV, I'm pretty sure it really won't bother you too much. And why don't I make a scale for these movies on fear factor? Ooh. So for The Faculty, I'm gonna rate this two Joe Rogans out of 5. So even though this is one of my favorites, I don't really think that this movie is all that scary. If you're looking for a traditional horror, you know, you want a jump scare, you want some good scary deaths, this isn't quite the movie for you. But if you're interested in something a little bit more psychological, then I'd say you should definitely check this out. Let's move on to the next movie.
It's usually the point where somebody says, let's get the fuck out of here.
Let's get the fuck out of here.
My next favorite movie that I want to get into is called Stay Alive. Stay Alive came out in 2006. It starred Frankie Muniz and Sophia Bush from their TV fame Malcolm in the Middle and One Tree Hill, respectively. A group of friends who one of their friends passes away mysteriously in a very brutal and violent death. And upon researching how it is that he died, they trace it back to a video game. And once they start playing the video game, they realize that the video game is actually deathly. Now, while the plot is really flawed, it's a super fun watch. To me, Stay Alive really has kind of the best of what was going on in early 2000s horrors. If you look at other movies that were coming out during this time, there was a Nightmare Before Elm Street remake, there was a Friday the 13th remake, there was a House of Wax remake. Throughout all of that, we had this little original gem, which as far as I know isn't based on anything else, so it's a genuine original idea, which is pretty hard to come by these days. And there's a lot of fun jump scares. And if you've ever played a scary video game and you feel like the video game is happening all around you, this is for that. You have to remember that 2006 was pre-Twitch. If you were into gaming, this should be something that you can relate to. I'd say the best parts of this movie is definitely Frankie Muniz, because I was a huge Frankie Muniz fan. Agent Cody Banks, Big Fat Liar. So if you grew up watching Frankie Muniz movies, this is kind of a fun, different take, because he doesn't play the goody two-shoes type of character that he was really known for. And then If you are a One Tree Hill fan, I'm sure the Sophia Bush nod is really nice to see her. It's this kind of gothic, alternative, tough chick, and her character is really badass in the movie as well. And sidebar, Jack from This Is Us is in this. He's our cold open kill. And don't worry, I haven't ruined any of the movie. That's literally where the movie gets started. Last but not least, Jimmy Simpson. He's really, really, really funny in this movie. He's one of those actors that, like, I know his face. I couldn't tell you things he's been in. He's really great comedic relief. So for my fear factor level, I'm gonna give Stay Alive 3 Joe Rogans out of 5. I think that's a pretty fair balance.
Come on, you bitch. Oh, shit. Bitch, that's cheating! I'm not dead yet!
The next movie I'm talking about came out the following year, and it's the one movie that I actually own that I am afraid to watch by myself. I'm talking to you about 2007's The Strangers. It's remarked as like one of the better horror movies of the noughties. I hate calling it that. It sounds weird. Strangers starred Liv Tyler and some other guy that I don't remember his name right now. Scott Speedman, that's the other guy that's in this movie. It was about this couple on their way home from a wedding, and it looks like they're having a little bit of a tiff, and they're trying to relax and settle in for the night when some strangers come barging to their door and pretty much wrecking the rest of their evening. Now, this movie, to this day, scares the ever-loving shit out of me. I remember seeing this in theaters, being 17, being in the theater, and watching it like this the whole time. 17 years old, straight up, tears in my eyes, watching a movie like this. That's how much this movie scared me. And it says it's based on a true story, and the whole movie is essentially just this couple being in their home and it's being invaded, and there's nothing they can seemingly do about it. They didn't do anything wrong, they didn't do anything stupid, they didn't have a house party, they did nothing. They were just home. And I think that's what really shakes me to my absolute core. Also, the villains never have faces. And to me, a faceless killer is so much scarier than having it actually attached to someone that you know or someone that you can see. It's far more scary that they're just in these masks and they're just regular ass people. You know, this isn't Mike Myers. This isn't like The Thing. Like, it's physical people just like you and I. And I think that's what really drives the scare factor in this movie. So I think it has to be noted that the acting really carries this movie because there's not a whole lot going on otherwise. It's just literally people in a house running. It's a giant cat and mouse game the entire movie. But Liv Tyler really blew me away in this movie. I'm not super familiar with her work. I know she's done a lot of great stuff, Pearl Harbor, what have you, but I've just never really taken too much time to really watch her work. But The Strangers really made me have a newfound respect for her. She's so good in this role, and she's so good at, like, her character is really interesting because she, like, I don't know, they're just really trying to survive. They make a lot of smart decisions, and ultimately it just doesn't work out for them in the end, but you really feel like, damn, like, that could be me. Like, that could happen to absolutely anybody. So The Strangers, I can't think of a negative thing to say about this. They do, I guess the one negative thing I would say about the movie is that they rely a little bit on, like, music cues to really drive the fear factor, and to me silence is far scarier than that. But I also think that they balance that out pretty well. There's a lot of scenes where she's like, especially that first opening shot where I think the first time that you see the masked figure behind her, and she's just in the kitchen doing like nothing, and he's just moving behind her from one place to another, terrifies me. So for The Strangers, even though this list is in no particular order, I am gonna give The Strangers 5 Joe Rogans out of 5, because to me it's the absolute craziest, scariest shit ever.
You're doing this to us because you were home.
So I think it's funny that I'm calling my fear factor rating Joe Rogan, and I'm doing how many Joe Rogans, but he's not even like the latest host of Fear Factor. Like, I don't know if Fear Factor got canceled for a second or third time, but ludicrous is actually, it should actually be the ludicrous scale, but whatever. So the next movie I'm talking about is my actual favorite, probably movie of all time. Like, I don't even know if I would put it in just a horror category, but this might be one of my favorite movies ever. And I'm talking about Carrie. I'm not talking about just the original Carrie, I'm talking about both Carries. I'm talking Carrie from 1976 and Carrie from 2013. So I get a lot of flack for being a big fan of horror remakes, or actually remakes in general. And while the older I get, the less I like remakes, I can't find too many flaws with this specific one. So I'm gonna talk about both movies kind of as a whole. If you don't know the story of Carrie, Carrie is about a high school teen that is heavily being bullied at school and has this sadistic, scary, overprotective mother at home. She's kind of getting it from both ends of the spectrum. And after a huge incident takes place in her locker, one of the girls that participated in the bullying decides that this isn't right. She wants to do something about it. So she has her boyfriend take Carrie to prom, and even though it's supposed to be this nice gesture, it ultimately results in a lot of death. If you consider yourself a horror movie buff, or if you're a big fan of horror, I feel like you cannot live any more of your life without seeing this movie. You absolutely must see this movie. A lot of people argue that the 70s was some of the best time in horror, and I definitely could see why you think that, because a lot of the movies that we are remaking now or in the early 2000s were 70s horror. It really, to me, it was a game changer in the genre. A lot of different things. We were just seeing different kinds of leads, different types of stories being told, and I think Carrie's is very, very important. Everyone has a breaking point, and it's just finding out what that breaking point is, and then what the aftermath of that breaking point would be like to push someone to their absolute limit. I don't really consider it too much horror. I really consider it more psychological, more putting myself in Carrie's shoes and thinking about what would I do with all of this torment and abuse, and then also having this unique and incredibly powerful superpower that nobody really knows about. So if we're talking about the 1976 version, I feel like we've got to talk about Sissy Spacek. Sissy Spacek is absolutely incredible. She is Carrie to a T. I do feel like, even though I like both of these versions, the remake and the original, I feel like Sissy Spacek is Carrie. I do love Chloe Grace Moretz's version of Carrie, but I do feel like the original one is far more raw, far more real and relatable and awkward, and it's just a little bit easier to believe her storyline in that version. However, even though I love the mom from the original Carrie, Piper Laurie, I think she's absolutely incredible. I think that Jodie Foster steals the remake in Carrie. I think she's so good, like so good. I can't say enough good things about her. I wish that movie had gotten a lot more positive feedback from a critic standpoint. Didn't do a carbon copy of the original Carrie mom. She did her own version, and it was just as creepy, just as scary, just as villainous as the original. Now, what's not so great about the original movie is there's a lot of stuff that I think is not PC and might make people uncomfortable with the things that they're talking about. However, I think that they frame all of these characters saying these bad, nasty things in a light to where, like, we are aware that they're bad and they're nasty. We are going to, like, do something about it by the end of the movie. So I think it kind of forgives itself in that way. But watch the original and watch the remake. They're so worth your time. However, I would say stay far away from that sequel that came out on the Sci-Fi Channel, because that is trash, and I don't have anything nice to say about that version. Don't watch Carrie 2. Carrie 2 is dumb. Also, John Travolta is in the original movie, and I always forget it until it's on. It's always, I'm like watching it, and then I'm like, oh, you're the one that I want. For the original Carrie, 1976, I'm gonna give this 4 Rogans out of 5. And for the remake with Chloe Grace Moretz, I'm gonna give this a solid 3 Rogans. So the original is slightly better, but if you don't want to go and find the original, you can watch the new one and be just as satisfied. But I think the old one is actually on Netflix right now, so go stream it. have one final horror movie for you that is my absolute favorite, and I feel like I didn't initially write this down when I was making this list, but it would be absolutely silly for me to leave this out just because everybody talks about it. But Scream. The entire Scream franchise, actually. I do like a lot of popular horror movies, but there are very few franchises that I would say I'm actually a fan of pretty much all of them. I think the Saw movies are kind of hit and miss. I think the first two are really great, and then the rest is just a mixed bag of BS. Same thing with Final Destination. However, I feel like the Scream franchise has stayed true to his heart. You know what I mean? Like, it's consistent in some ways, but also aware that the genre has changed since its initial first movie, and it changes with it. I think we can't talk about Scream without talking about how incredible Neve Campbell is. Her character, Sydney, has just gets stronger and stronger every movie, which I think is fantastic. By the time that you see Scream 4, her transition from Scream to Scream 4 is huge. She's not this like poor, woe is me girl anymore. She is a strong fighter, and she's going to fight to survive. She's never just going to cave in. She never backs down to these huge villains. Like, she never does. No matter who the villain is, she's ready to go to fight it out until the absolute death. You should go watch Scream. I'm not going to give anything away. I'm just going to tell you I'm rating it 5 Rogans out of 5. And I don't care if this is an accurate scale. I don't care if my scale makes absolutely no sense the entire video. Go watch Scream. Go watch all of it, and then let's talk about it. If you guys are actually interested in that, leave it in the comments below and let me know, because I would love to do a whole like video series covering all of the Screams.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Well, that's all I have for you today. Those are some of my favorite horror movies. Please make sure that you do me a solid and drop a like on this video, and that way I'll keep making more stuff about horror movies. Also, skip on over to that subscribe button and hit that bell next to it so you'll be notified every time I upload. I've had a lot of fun talking to you guys today, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye!